how I saved over $20,000 on a $40,000 salary within 2 years. What's up, Flourishing fam? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Delores and welcome to Flourish with Delores. On my channel, I teach you to embrace your journey and remember that flourishing is about progress and not perfection, honey. In today's video, we are going to be talking about money. If you've watched a couple of my videos, you know I do love talking about finances. I do need to put a disclaimer that I am not a financial advisor. I am just sharing my personal experience in hopes that some of the tips you can take away and add it to your own life. But I definitely do recommend working with a financial advisor that you are comfortable with in order to really look at your own personal situation. So without further ado, I'm going to be sharing how I saved over $20,000 on a $40,000 salary within 2 years. And this is going to be pretty much scratching the basics. But if you want me to do more videos like this, definitely comment below. I can talk about how I budget, show my budget spreadsheets, and then I could even take it a layer up and talk about how I budget as a newlywed, because that's a whole nother ball game. So let me know what you're interested in seeing. I do want to mention that I do understand that in these times of COVID-19 and our current academic status, it may be difficult for you as a recent grad to save this much money because you may be having a hard time getting a job. So I am definitely sensitive to that. It has been some time since I finished my first 2 degrees, so I definitely do understand that the availability of jobs is different now than it was then. But hopefully some of these tips can definitely help you save some money nonetheless. So let's jump right in. So a little background, I've had 2 jobs since I was at minimum of 2 jobs. There's times in my life where I've had 3 jobs since I was 16 years old. So I got really comfortable with budgeting at a very young age. And I've always been frugal Fran. I have no problem eating tuna sandwiches. I make sure I know exactly where each penny that comes in is going. So those are really 2 huge reasons that I was able to save so much money. I'm not a huge shopper. I'm not into the latest trends or designer stuff. So that really does help. Another big thing, when I finished my bachelor's, I moved back home. And I actually really wanted to go to the University of Maryland to be my boo. He was at Johns Hopkins in Maryland, and I wanted to do my master's there. But I understood that I wanted to get my doctorate after my master's, and that was going to cost even more money. So for me to pay money to go out of state for my master's, pay out of state tuition, and use all that money on top of like paying for an apartment, that would not be the smartest financial decision for me to make. So I moved back home to Connecticut and went to UConn for my master's. You can definitely check out my grad school video if you want to hear a little bit more about that. So moving home obviously saved me a ton of money because when I was working on my master's, I didn't have to pay rent. So that definitely saved. Once I finished my master's, the year after I finished my bachelor's, and got my first like full-time job, I was working while getting my master's. I was doing part-time at a shelter. But once I started working my full-time job, I did start contributing with giving my mom money for the bills, for groceries and things like that. But I made sure that I really budgeted. And I was very fortunate in the sense that my mom said, you know, you let me know how much you can pay. So I wrote down my budget of how much I was getting paid, what all my expenses were, including loans. So I was paying $500 a month for loans. And then I also looked up, you know, how much do people charge to rent a room in someone's house, and found that that was $300. So I got lucky where I only was giving my mom $300, and then I would buy like the groceries that I would need for lunches and stuff. But if you're not able to move back home for whatever reason, I definitely recommend that you scale down and get a modest apartment. You do not have to be, you know, balling in this beautiful apartment right away. Remember that saving this amount of money is just temporary. It's just a temporary sacrifice. You can get a very modest apartment as long as it's safe, no critters or whatever like that. And it could be a studio. It's kind of like being back in the dorm room, but you can make it so nice. I've seen studios where people really make them nice. So you can Pinterest that, and they find good ways to separate the sleeping area with the living area, chilling area. So definitely look into that. You don't have to move back home necessarily if that's not your situation, if it's not a comfortable or healthy situation for you. So when I started working full-time, my first job at university was a private college as an admissions counselor. I was only making $38,000. I don't like to say only because everybody's situation is different. For me, I felt like I was only making $38,000. A year later, I did get promoted to assistant director and I started making $42,000. And I was working part-time at a shelter making $13 an hour. So between the $42,000, well, first starting with 38, then 42, plus the $13 an hour I was making at the shelter. I was trying my best to hustle. And actually 2 or 3 years after all of that, I started teaching as an adjunct professor, making a little bit of coins there. But that was like after this like savings goal. So hope that makes sense. But I say that to say, do not be afraid to get a side hustle. If you're not making the most money at your full-time job, or if it's just not enough to do the things that you want to do or save as much as you want to save, there's so many side hustles you can do, including babysitting. Babysitting is something that I did while I was in college as well. Also bartending, driving Ubers if you feel safe enough, or if you don't want people in your car, you can do DoorDash or something like that. That way you're not dealing with people in your car. But there are a ton of side hustles that you can do to make a little bit extra coins if you need it. So here are some additional tips. I rarely shop. I shop a little bit more now, but at the time I would rarely shop for things. I was wearing things, and this is like 22-year-old me. I'm 27 now, but I was wearing things from like high school. And when I would shop at thrift stores. So again, I wasn't crazy about the new designer stuff. Luckily, I didn't really have a taste for any of that, but I did always make sure I looked good, honey. You could still look good on a budget without going crazy. So that was a major tip for me. So if you are currently splurging and shopping a lot, definitely try to cut that out for now. Remember, this is just a temporary goal that you are trying to reach. So just something you're doing for now. And I think it's a good long-term habit to have in general. But if you are a shopper, if you're like, Delores, next tip, like I'm going to be shopping anyway, there are extensions that you can put on your computer while you're shopping that can generate some coupons. So I use Honey, and whenever I'm on a certain website, or really just any website, Honey will start to recognize that in my cart and then see what coupons are available. So definitely use that coupon, baby. Save some money if you are going to do that shopping. Another major tip is to pack your lunch. Stop going out to eat for lunch while you're at work. That takes a lot of money. Imagine if you are spending $10 a day at lunch with your coworkers on average. That's probably like the minimum, because lunch could be pretty expensive. But if you're spending going out to eat $10 a day, that's $50 a week, which is $200 a month, which is $2,400 a year that you could have saved if you didn't go out to lunch every day. So one of the things I did was I would pack my lunch. I'd get, lunch meat or make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, tuna sandwiches. Definitely would rarely go out to eat for lunch or pay for lunch during this time. So that's a huge tip. If you are like, Delores, baby, I need to eat out, I'm going to eat out regardless. One of the things that I would do when I would eat out is I would go to places like Olive Garden or like mom and pop shops, especially like Cuban restaurants where you're going to get like a lot of food, and I would split the meal in half. So if I'm going out to dinner with some girls and we get Cuban food or Olive Garden or something like that, I know like, okay, half of this is going to be my lunch for tomorrow, or it's going to be like another meal for later. So you can definitely split lunches in half, because for the most part in the United States, like when you go out to eat, like our serving sizes are way bigger than what you actually need for one sitting. So that's a good way to save and kind of stretch your meals out a little bit. The next tip is to create a realistic budget. So if you are budgeting and it's just not working for you, you need to go back and look at what can you do to make yourself more comfortable, or do you need to pick up another side hustle or job if you have the time and energy. So definitely sit down, create a realistic budget that includes what are your expenses. And when I say expenses, I mean things like things that you have to pay. So your gas, your phone bill, your rent. What are your expenses? How much money are you bringing in that can cover those expenses? And if that money is like in the negative, you need to start looking at what can you cut out. Maybe it's those lunches, maybe it's the shopping, maybe it's your Netflix account and you need to go log into your aunt's. Like I didn't have cable literally until this year, and that's because Charles, my husband, was like, I need cable. What I did was I bought and this was I've been living on my own for about 5 years before I got married, and I bought an Apple TV for $50, just one-time fee, and I would plug in my Apple TV to my TV and then log into my mom's cable, or a friend's cable, and you can literally download an app for every single network that you like and watch the TV. I don't consider it stealing because somebody's paying for the cable, but I don't know, we won't get into all that. But you don't need cable or certain expenses that you can cross out when you're creating your realistic budget, and that's $50 that you can then go and save somewhere else. Another major tip is don't feel like, okay, yes, I graduated, I got my first job, now I'm gonna buy this brand new car or this luxury apartment. You do not need to do any of that. I drove a hoopty, literally, and I was proud of my hoopty. Like, no one could tell me my car, Riley, rest in peace, Riley, no one could tell me my car wasn't amazing. Like, that car was everything to me. I worked really hard for it. In high school and college, I worked a couple jobs to be able to pay for it in full, which is also another great tip, is to, if you can, not finance a car right away when you graduate. Try to find a car that's like $2,000, $3,000 that you can save up for and pay. That's obviously not going to give you a lot of problems that you're putting money into. My car was from a police auction, which was really, really good because I got it cheaper because it was an auction, but then it was a good quality car in terms of it was taken care of because it was a government car. So they made sure they kept up with the oil changes. So my car lasted, especially for it to be so old and have so many miles on it, it lasted a long time. And I drove that bad boy, literally, I shouldn't have said it. I said, I'm going to drive this car till the wheels fall off. And literally one day, the wheels fell off and I cried and I had to get a new car. But by then I had my doctorate, I had a better paying job, and I was in a better position to finally finance a car. I wish I didn't have to finance a car because it definitely is another bill. So if you can, just hold off on financing a car so you don't have to have another bill on your hands. And drive that hoopty, girl. You're gonna be cute anyway. You got this. And the biggest tip I can give is to have several bank accounts. I had at the time about 5 accounts. Now I think I have over 10, but having several bank accounts definitely does help you delegate which bucket of money is doing what. That's so helpful because sometimes you think like, oh, I have $10,000 in the bank, I'm good. But then you forget, well, $2,000 is for rent. 1,000 of it I'm trying to save for my car. 1,000 of it I'm trying to do whatever. So you want to make sure you have different accounts so that the money doesn't even have to touch each other and you know what's going to what. And I do recommend having just one credit card to build credit responsibly. Like what I do is I use my credit card to shop or for expenses, but I know that I have that money in my debit card and I just transfer it right over after I spend it. So I only really use it to build credit. So you only need one. So tell Macy's and everybody else that wants you to get a credit card under them, no. So you're going to use your budget that you make to route your money into different accounts. And so if your job does direct deposit, definitely utilize that, because as you're routing money that you want to save into a different account, you're not even going to miss it if you budget correctly. So let's say you're like, okay, I could afford to budget $50 a week. You want to make sure that you just have that direct deposited into account that you do not have a debit card or credit card for. That way you're not touching it. If you really need the money because of some emergency, you have to physically go to the bank, fill out the form to get it out. So having that process where it's less convenient to get your money will definitely help you save more money. So let's talk about the different types of accounts. So in general, you want to do a savings and a checking account, and that's going to be for more temporary short-term expenses. So savings could be, let's say you have a friend who's getting married 6 months from now and you want to start putting like $10 aside in that, but you know you're going to take that money out pretty soon. So that could be in your savings account. So then your short-term checking account can be for little things like groceries, gas, things that you just need every day that you're not really needing to accumulate money for. So those are the first two. The other two accounts that I'm going to talk about, I don't even want you to have a debit card for it. You're going to open up these accounts and then you're not going to get a card for it so that you don't touch it. So what you can do is open up a credit union, maybe through your job or just some bank that just you're not able to easily access because they're not everywhere, like a Bank of America. I use Bank of America for like my gas money, like quick money, but the money that you really want to sit in the bank longer, you don't want to have access to it often. So I use a credit union. At the time I had the checking and a savings with the credit union. The credit union checking I would use for all of my bills. If you do auto pay, especially for most services, you will save money by doing auto pay, such as your car insurance. If you put that on auto pay, you'll get rewarded to do that. So what you'll do is with your direct deposit is you'll route the money that you need for your bills, your car insurance, your rent. You'll route that into a checking account with this certain bank that you don't have a debit card for. And then you'll set up your auto pay. So you know the money's going in and then the money's coming out. And then when you're reviewing your that account, you can just see, okay, this account is for my bills. The bills are coming in, the bills are coming out. Nothing else is being touched with this account. Then your other account, your savings account within this credit union or whatever, will be for your long-term savings. Again, you don't have a debit card for this one. This is for your long-term savings. You're not taking this money out anytime soon. What I did with mine, which is why I became so many little accounts within it, is I started a Christmas Club account within that savings account. So the Christmas Club, I set it up where like $50 every pay period would go into this Christmas Club, and then the bank would release it to me at the end of the year. The reason why I did it was because I have a huge family and it would get so overwhelming to try to figure out Christmas gifts in the month of November and December, try to figure out, okay, where's that money coming from? So I literally will start saving for Christmas and have like a nice, like, I think it'd be like $1,000 or $2,000 by the end of the year that I could use for Christmas presents. Sometimes I'll reward myself, buy myself something really special. So that account you want to use for longer term savings. If you're trying to save for a car, if you're just trying to save for maybe a house, you will determine through your budget how much money is going to go in there. And then depending on the bank, you can have different buckets within that savings account that you're not touching. So for example, your wedding fund, your car fund, that is just so helpful. Trust me, when you can look in your bank and just see what's doing what in your account. It may take a little while to set it up in terms of like doing your budget, knowing what's going where. But once you do it, you don't even have to think about it, which is so good. For me, when I was doing the long-term savings, I was saving about $500 to $1,000 a month. And with times where I could do a little bit more, maybe I made a little more at work, I would just transfer it into the account. But the thing about when you're trying to save and you need to transfer it into an account, you're less likely to, because you're like, oh, do I really want to give up this $100? So that's why it's so much better to just set it up direct deposit where it just goes into that account. You don't have to physically do it, and then you're more likely to continue to save. I'm starting to get into doing more research about online bank accounts. So if you know of a really good one, let me know. I'll pop in some ones that I'm researching right now. I hear their interest rates are higher because there's no brick and mortar that they have to pay for, no overhead costs that they have to pay for. So once you have your budget all set up and all of your accounts, it is okay to maybe every 6 months review your expenses, see how your budget is going, and readjust as you need to. Maybe you gave yourself a little bit more spending money than you needed and you can reroute a little bit more to your savings, or maybe you went a little too hard on savings and you're, scraping for money at the end of every week. And transferring money out of your savings, then okay, maybe I need to like loosen the belt a little bit more. So it's okay to readjust, pivot depending on what's going on in life at the time. Also, when you're readjusting and looking at your expenses, see what else you can cut. One of the things I cut was doing my own hair, baby. So I would, with the exception of getting like weaves and braids, actually my weaves I would do myself, but with the exception of getting braids, I would do my own hair, my own conditioning, my own trimming. So see what you can do on your own that you can kind of cut as you're trying to think of ways that you can save more money. And bonus tips. If your job offers a 401k, definitely join that as soon as possible. Because even if you feel like currently your budget, you don't have much money to really save, at the very least, if you can start doing whatever the minimum is, most jobs it's 5% in order to get matched. But talk to your financial reps at your job to see what it is. But at least at the very minimum, if you could do that, at least you're saving for your retirement. The earlier you start, the better. So if you don't do anything that I suggested today, definitely try to tap into your 401k at work so you can start saving towards your retirement. I think at the time for me, and this isn't even a part of the $20,000 that I saved on my own, but just with the 401k that was building up, I think within that 2 years, I think I built up about 10 to 15,000. So important to definitely do that. Another bonus tip is to invest in a low cost index fund, or even something as simple as Acorns or Robinhood. Those are really simple apps where you can put $5 in and your money is being invested and grows pretty quickly, but it's just low risk. So that's a perfect thing to do when you're just starting out and you're not ready to, you know, take big risks at this time. So that's it. I hope this was helpful to you. Let me know what your favorite tip is. And if you are a savvy saver like me, drop your favorite tip for saving money as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. It helps so much. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.